quick argument takes place. Joey goes, "You go first." I'm like, "No, you go first." Now I'm on a window air conditioner. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but brothers doing what brothers do. We place our lives and that other brother's life in front of our own. That's the meaning of brotherhood.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are in the world. This is the Halligans and Half Wheels podcast brought to you by Box 1971, where we're changing the culture of the fire service one fireman at a time. We are in northern New Jersey here for July's podcast, joined by my good buddy, John. How are you, sir?
I am making my mark across the United States, slowly but surely.
Surely. I'm going to tell you, slowly was traffic coming across the GW Bridge today. That is very slow. I don't know how these guys do it. Chief Eddie, thank you for driving. How's things with you?
I'm ready to get back to North Carolina driving.
Not very many pines around here, is it?
Not very many pine trees, for damn sure.
It's a lot better down there.
We are sitting with a very special guest who has a very compelling story to tell. We're going to try to not talk as much and let him tell his story and navigate his career. We are sitting with Jeff Cool of Rescue 3. How are you, sir?
I'm very good.
Very
good. A little
good.
Tired, but good. But getting to North Carolina, you could still trade paint here in New York. Never end.
Not when it's not my vehicle.
Trading paint. Where did you live when you worked?
I grew up in Rockland County.
Okay.
So 35 miles north of New York City. And so to landmark that for somebody, it's about 15 minutes from West Point Military Academy.
Okay. So up the Hudson.
Yep.
All right. That's pretty country up there.
Yeah, very historical area. A lot of Revolutionary War took place there. So.
Nice. That's awesome. So were you born into the job? Was family on the job, or?
I guess I was born to be a firefighter. My dad was, my dad's from West Virginia, and he grew up around the volunteer fire department there in Webster Springs, West Virginia. Came up to New York for work. Grew up in a coal mine in town. Not a lot of work down there unless you wanted to work in a coal mine. And came up to New York, and ultimately, down the road, went to work for the New York State Thruway Authority. And he did fire and towing for the New York State Thruway on the Tappan Zee Bridge. And he was also a volunteer firefighter. So I was always around a firehouse, with Dad. I guess that's where it all started,
Did you get the bug early?
Oh, absolutely. So Mom would be looking for me some days. I grew up in a very quaint village called the village of Haverstraw, an old Dutch village. The oldest bakery in the United States was there when it closed its doors 150 some years, and we had 5 different firehouses. Three of the companies were housed in one building, and Mom would be looking for me as probably 5 years old, and I was out the door and she couldn't find me, and I was at the volunteer firehouse hanging out.
What do they call that? Buffing?
Yeah, I guess buffing.
Yeah, that's what we keep hearing that term a lot. Buff stuff.
Yeah.
So Perone keeps saying it to us. We just shake it off. So you graduate high school. Did you go immediately into the job?
So I guess we should back up for
sure.
So at 14 years of age, I joined the Haverstraw Fire Explorers. The Boy Scouts of America has an Explorer program.
Mm-hmm.
We had one of the first in the country. So I started in that at 14 years of age in Haverstraw. Basically, it was all exterior stuff. Basically we were just helping, humping hose from place to place or picking up hose after, standing around. But it was the camaraderie and seeing that at 18 years of age, I got to go into the regular volunteer fire department. But back up a little bit, at 16 years of age, around 15, 16, I read the famous book, Report from Engine Company 82. I don't know, you guys have probably never heard of that book.
No,
right?
never.
No. So I read that book, and, I'm like, the bug is set deep in me now, and
right.
It's like I wanted to be a New York City fireman. And anyway, I'm dreaming this dream, and, I got my goal set. My counselors are like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do in school? And I'm like, I want to be a New York City fireman. 17 years of age, I'm reading Firehouse magazine. I used to read that book or magazine cover to cover.
Sure.
Like it was Playboy, you know. It's like, but the pages weren't all sticky.
Just
you
for the
know?
article, right?
just for the articles.
Just for the article.
So anyway, I read this story on the DoD Fire Academy. Chanute Air Force Base had the DoD Fire Academy at the time, and I started talking to my dad. My dad was an Army veteran, and I said, hey, I think I want to become an Air Force firefighter. You know, he knew I wanted to become a New York City firefighter, but I had to be 21 to do that. So I go to a recruiter's office. He said, my dad told me, make sure you get a guaranteed job when you go there. So I go to a recruiter's office in Spring Valley, New York, and I talked to the Air Force recruiter, and he's like, we don't have firefighters. I'm like, sir, look at this article. Next thing you know, he pulls up the printout or whatever, and I sign a delayed enlistment contract at 17. So when I graduate high school in June of 85, I'm going to go into the Air Force. August 19th, 1985, I go into active duty Air Force and go to Lackland for basic training, and then off to Chanute Air Force Base in Illinois for 6 weeks of fire school, structural firefighting, crash fire rescue, basic first aid. Still with the ultimate goal, becoming a New York City firefighter. And my last name being Cool, guess where I got it stationed?
Eielson?
I was at Eielson Air Force Base. I seen 45 below zero, but I seen 90 degrees up there.
Yeah.
You know? And
Wow.
my fire chief was a great chief, civilian type, Bud Rotruff, awesome guy.
Oh, I know Bud.
You-
So I worked at North Star.
Okay, so
Bud, he's a legend.
we probably got. How about Carl Swenson? Do you know
Yes.
Carl Swenson too?
Yeah.
So
Legends.
yeah. So, but anyway, I have to think of some other guys up there. But Bud was, he was a wildland firefighting
Yeah.
guy, smoke jumper. I had my red card. I didn't even know what a red card was. For those that don't know what a red card is, that's all the guys, the crazy guys that are out there fighting that acres and acres and acres of fire. Why, I'd rather be on a taxpayer, a couple blocks of taxpayers or frames going, because you just don't see the headway. But we were a cutting edge fire department. We ran mutual aid into North Pole, Moose Creek, wherever they needed us. We were running mutual aid, and we had a tanker, which is a 5,000 gallon tanker. So for those that don't know, Alaska, I mean, there's really not any hydrants there. It's all shuttling water in, dumping water, and it's a different way of firefighting. But at some point in time when I was up there, I took a detail to the bombing range, and I was doing written test after written test for FDNY. And I flew down back to New York in 1987 to take the written test for FDNY. Took the written test, and back to Alaska I go. I thought I did pretty well on the test, but back to Alaska I go. And I'm still waiting for FDNY, but I'm not being very patient. About 3 years, I'm 3 years into my contract, my 4-year contract, and my dad runs into the fire chief for Stewart International Airport, who happens to be also the Air National Guard chief there. And I get offered a job with no resume in front of him. Just basically, he met my dad, and he knew I had all the qualifications, so I got offered a civilian job working at Stewart International Airport, doing crash fire rescue. That was before it was called ARF. What's
Right.
ARF,
Yeah.
yeah.
ARF.
So anyway, now I still have to take the physical test for FDNY, and the physical test back then was still a written grade, and it was a combined score. Your written test and your physical agility test were a combined score. So every 24-hour tour I worked, it was 24 on, 24 off. We worked a 72-hour work week. I ran the air traffic control tower every night with another firefighter with the 35-pound vest, 40-pound vest on. I hated it. It sucks, but doing it. But I wanted that job so bad. And so I did that every night I worked, and if we had a run in between, it was off we go, But, again, runs don't happen every time you turn around in an airport. So most nights were pretty good. And I did pretty well. My combined score, I had a 98 overall, 100 on my physical agility. It was a very demanding test. We had we had an individual die taking the physical agility test back then.
Wow.
Kidney failure. I've heard, rumors that it was, the guy was using coke, but I don't know, using
Sure.
drugs. But anyway, it was still a very demanding test. When you're done with it, like you just felt spent, like you ran a marathon. But you know what? That job is, to me, it still should be earned and not given, because we're all athletes in fire, not just FDNY. I mean, we go from 0 to 60, and 1, 2, 3, we go, 0
That's
to
right.
60, and you got to be able to perform. And so anyway, my overall score was 98, and I was 1,362 on the list. It was delayed a little bit, lawsuits and blah, blah, blah. But I got appointed to FDNY July the 5th of 1992. We were the first class through in 1992. And, I just couldn't get enough of the job. I was just eating everything up. I didn't really know a lot about FDNY. I know the book, Report from Mention Company 82. But I didn't know 82 from 92 from, or 31 from 19. But anyway, 6 weeks in, and somebody went to bat for me. Somebody I know was somebody I'm very close with today, and got me to 19 Truck in the South Bronx. 19 Truck is a rear mount, and it's still one of the busiest rear mounts in the city of New York. And when we say busy, you always look at OSW, not runs, occupied structural work, and what you're doing in fire duty. So anyway, one of my buddies, Patty Vogt, he drove the 6th Division. He was in the Air Guard with me, and he went to this guy. Maybe you heard of him. His name is Chief Joseph DiBernardo.
Yeah.
And he drove Chief D, and he said, hey, we got this guy, and he's in probie school now. He's in the Air Guard with me. Can we get him to a good house? And he gets me to 19 Truck. And I didn't know 19 again from 44, 31. But 19 Truck is in the same battalion. It's in with 50 Engine, a great engine company, great house. And the 2-6 Battalion, which is 82 and 31 and 73 and 42. So basically I was going to work and being appointed to the book Report from Engine Company 82 was. Oh. And I actually worked with some of the guys that are in the book. Their names are different, in the book.
Sure.
But, I've met Dennis, before he passed through the
Right.
years, and we talked about that, and it's, I was just blessed to be able to go to that house.
So Willie's name really wasn't Willie? Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny. I had my original book that was battered. I was much like you. And I got a hold of Dennis through the mail. This is back when we actually had to send stuff, and, you just couldn't email. Sent him the book, and he signed it, and then he made a drawing out of pencil for me. And I thought that was just, he's like, this is a special little treat,
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's so freaking cool that he was just like, he was just great.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like you don't know the guys that you get to touch in work beside, I don't know if hero is this like, but they're just to another standard to the fire service, who they are to me,
Yeah.
it's like, but that you get to work and touch and talk to those guys, and they're my friends, like Bob Farrell,
Right.
Louis Andre, I mean, they're my friends, they're, and you hear all these tremendous things that they did in the war that they were through, during the war years. And,
Right.
I mean, but they're just great guys. I could just sit there and listen to them tell stories all day long. It's like,
Right.
Like talking about Bob Farrell. So I know you guys were at his office, and you see the hydrant sitting out front, right? And I go, Bob, is that from Charlotte 170? He goes, yep. He goes, 82 hooked up to that hydrant. I don't know how many times, but he goes, my dog pissed on it thousands.
He just said that the other
Yeah,
day.
yeah. It's like, and it's just,
Exact words.
yeah.
Yeah, it's exact words.
Yeah.
It's funny because most people walk past it and don't even realize what they're walking past.
Yeah.
And then the pole in the back where the axes are, he's got a pole from 31.
Yeah.
And he's, where do you get your balls big enough to take that
Yeah.
stuff, But God doesn't talk to covering lieutenants,
Yeah, yeah.
little G. So he just does what he does. So how was your time in 19?
So 19 was great. I mean, I was the first probie there in I think 2 years. So I was the center of attention. But I knew when I came in, to keep my mouth shut. Be in the sink. Keep the coffee pot full, tools clean, be on a house watch. Ask questions. But be seen and not heard, really. And so one of my lieutenants. Billy Weber, God rest his soul, he passed away last year. He said to me, he goes, "So what'd you do before you came on a job?" And I said, "I worked in an airport." He says, "Well, what'd you do in the airport?" I said, "I worked with planes." And he goes, "Were you a 57150?" And I was like, "Oh no!" So that's the old code for an Air Force firefighter. And so he knew I was an Air Force firefighter. He goes, "I was a 57150." But the cat was already out of the bag. You want to stay under the radar. You don't want to say, "Hey, I was a volley, and I know this, and I know that."
Right.
You just want to learn everything their way, not your way. I mean, that's, I worked with a few of those guys that, they came from other departments.
Oh, yeah.
And
back home, this ain't
exactly. This is the way we do it here. And we did some fire duty. It was some great bosses. Like a lot of my bosses came out of 28 truck, the Harlem Hilton. So they seen some fire duty over there, and they get promoted and they got to leave. They got to leave Harlem, and they come over to the Bronx, and Manhattan's lost, but the Bronx is gain. And
Right.
I work with Brian McParlin. He lives in. He was a tough boss. You see him in some of these old Jill Freeman books. With the snot running down the front of his handlebar mustache. And no mask. And just taught you the right way. I think about my buddy, another guy. I talk about a lot of dead guys. Unfortunately, a lot of my friends passed, 9/11 cancer. My buddy, Tommy Kelly, we came out of a job the one day, and I'm a young firefighter, and we got our asses kicked, and I got snot. I never had a mustache, but I just got snot running down the front of my face, and he's lighting up, and I'm like, I go, "Brother," how do you even do that? He goes, "This is sweet smoke, kid. Sweet smoke. It's good stuff." It's like, I was like, "Oh, man." But he was a guy that always, would keep you in line. It's like, he's like, you don't want to get on Tommy's bad side. But I think one of the old timers I worked with, Joe Selly, another guy, God rest his soul. He was a Mason. He was a Bronx guy, born and bred in the Bronx. And he said, "It's the magnet on the roof." That's the way he talked. He had a high-pitched voice. He's like, "It brings all the guys here, the magnet on the roof," right? And he goes, "The leaders in the job here, they come through this house and saw, like you heard, like Charlie Rivera was lieutenant. Carlos Rivera was former commissioner of FDNY, was a lieutenant in 50 Engine. And you hear about this guy and that guy. And then you start seeing it. It's like, so Billy Seelig, he was the chief of special operations. He was one of my captains. Mikey McParlin, he was one of my captains. He was a division commander. It was just like, one guy after, one of my probies, Tommy Correa. He's came on 2 years after me, I believe. Tommy is, I think, a 3-star chief. And if I get it wrong, Tom, I'm sorry. But he's a chief of training right now.
Okay.
He's like, but it's just like you watch the movers and shakers come through 50 and 19. It's just like so many guys come through there. And I know I'm missing some, and I apologize to the guys that I don't catch, but so honored to work in that house with those guys.
Right. Good number, good crew.
Oh yeah.
I bet the kitchen table was just ferocious.
Oh, that's the focal point. It's like, I've heard it, said before. I mean, that's where you go to get your balls broke.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't like, you got to hang out in the kitchen to see what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like, all the world's problems were solved there. Guy, well, again, another Joe Selly story. I'm like, "Joe, I'm getting married." why do you want to do that? You screw up the best job in the world. You know, it's like, do that to my wife. She doesn't find it funny. You know, it's like, we'll talk about my wife in a little bit. She's a saint, you know, but just all those stories, you know, it's like, I mean, I got to tell Joe Sully story after Joe Sully story. So Joe, he loved Elvis, but he hated the Beatles, right? You know, and he always had a toothpick hanging out of the side of his mouth, the hair pumping out the side of his helmet, you know, and the irons up on. He always carried the irons, right? He was a forcible entry all the time.
All right.
So I worked on the same side of the rig with him all the time, you know. And I said, Joe, they found the lost tapes of the Beatles, right? I said, I'm going to get them for you for Christmas. He goes, don't bother wasting your money. Don't bother wasting your money. He goes, 3 more bullets, they can have a reunion.
Oh, dang.
It's just
He would tell you the way it was, you know. It's like,
Wow. Ferocious.
it was.
I love it.
Oh.
I love it.
He some of the other stuff that he would say, you can't, you know.
You just don't want to say
Oh yeah, I can, I guess. Well, the one night we go to a gas leak, you know, 3:30 in the morning, you know, he's like, the lady's like, you smell gas? He's like, he smells, he goes, that's not gas, lady, that's cat piss, I'm telling you.
the things you want to say,
Oh, yeah.
nobody will say. Joe would say it, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you had spent how many years there?
So I had 9 years in 19 truck, you know, and I never, I was in a study group in 15 and 19, and I was in a study group that became known as Starfleet, right? And we got dubbed that way. There was a lot of smart guys in that group, and I had probably about 8 months in the books. And I came home, and I told my wife, I go, I don't think I want to be a lieutenant right now. I'm just having too much fun being a fireman. And she's like, well, then don't do it. So I folded up my books, and I didn't really look back. And, you know, I was hoping to do 20 years in 19 truck, you know. And, you know, I was up for a seat, you know, as a chauffeur in 19. And, you know, we don't know what the next minute holds for us in the fire service, really. You know,
Sure.
It could be quiet. You could be having a lot of fun, breaking each other's shoes. And the next thing you know, the other shoe drops, you know,
Right.
And that's what happened on 9/11, you know, that shoe dropped hard, you know, it was a big thud, you know, for FDNY, you know, and for the world, you know. I remember it. I got off duty the night of September 10th. I finished my 24 and came home, you know, I was tired. Got to sleep in the following morning, the morning of the 11th, and I'm watching Disney with my wife and my son Jeff. Jeff is 26 now. He's with FDNY EMS, but he was 5.5 at the time, right? I got to do math, you know.
Don't math in public.
Yeah. So anyway, he's watching Disney, and a commercial comes on. Typical male thing. I change the channel, and I see the first plane is impacted the Trade Center. And I was down there in 93. And I knew, you know, being an Air Force vet, you know, that this was terrorism. It was not an accident. And I started to get ready to go. And I'm like, I got to go even before the recall happened. And he's crying, my wife's crying, and Dylan was born in 2000. So he's a baby. He's 23 now. And anyway, I jump in my Toyota Corolla. I have no gas in my car because it's typical lazy coming home. I didn't feel like stopping for gas. And I'm thinking the George Washington Bridge is a secondary target. That's what I'm thinking in my brain. So I'm going through Nyack over the Tappan Zee Bridge. And I got to stop for gas in Nyack. I throw in maybe a quarter of a tank, just enough to get me going, and I get onto the bridge, and the bridge is shut down. I'm on the Westchester side. So the Tappan Zee Bridge, for those that don't know, it spans between Rockland and Westchester County. And if you look south on the bridge on a clear day, you can see Lower Manhattan. and it was a crystal clear day that day, and the bridge is shut down because they're panning for a secondary device. I don't know why they shut the bridge down with us on it, but they did. I'm standing out there with cops and firemen and civilians, and I mean, you could see the towers burning, you know, as clear as day, you know. So we're out there. I don't even know how long it was. You know, I would say less than 10 minutes, and you know, we're off again. And I take off, and I'm doing like 100 miles an hour in a Corolla, and this is my ghetto mobile. You know, this is what I drive to work. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word ghetto, but you know,
socioeconomic deprived or something like that.
Well, we'll go back to ghetto in a minute. I want to talk about that word but anyway, I take off and I get in a fight with like a local. Like I'm trying to get there, and the guy knows I'm a fireman, you know, but he wants to fight with me, you know, because I'm trying to weave through traffic and everything. And I'm like, do you know what's going on? I don't have time for you. I'm going, you know. And I get to the firehouse, and I see the battalion coming out on the apron. Battalion 26 is coming out on the apron. But I'm not in Battalion 26. I'm in 19 truck. So I don't stop them. And they go, and I open a door to the firehouse, and both 50 and 19 in the battalion are gone now. Nobody's in the firehouse. And so I go in, I sign my name. I'm the first off-duty member to sign into the journal. And I'm waiting for the rest of the brothers to show up to see what the game plan is, you know, because I'm the only guy. Nobody else is there. I'm the only guy in the firehouse. At such and such time, you know, I mean, guys were commandeering vehicles and they were heading south, you know, to the trade center and, you know, doing what brothers do, you know. And at such and such time, you know, a decision was made that they're going to start holding guys back and they're going to start mustering guys because they knew the loss of life was so great, you know. So we are muster at the 6th Division. We're at 155 in Melrose. So where that is, it's not too far from Yankee Stadium, you know. It's not too far from Yankee Stadium. That's where the division in 71 and 55. And there's hundreds of firefighters standing out there in the street, you know. Mm-hmm. And there's fighter jets flying overhead, right over the city, you know. I mean, like the skyline. It's like, you know, like while I'm used to seeing fighters, I've never seen fighters fly this low over, you know, the city. You know, it was an eerie feeling. And I'm literally standing there with my brother firefighters that are missing their blood brothers, right? That you know, they can't get a hold of. And it was, you know, that's when it really hit home. And you know, you knew something bad really happened. You know, we didn't know the extent of it. You know, we lost, you know, just shy of 3,000 people that day, 2,900, and I think it's 89 or something like that. It's like,
I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, and you know what? I know it's close to 3,000, and then you know we lost 343 firefighters, and I lost 33 friends that day, and
2,996.
2,996, and you know, initially it was just like all hands, you know, in the rescue and recovery efforts, and then such and such time, you know, a department order came down. I don't know if it was a department order or a directive or whatever it was, is like, you know, trying to rebuild the job, if you will, you know, and they were looking for senior guys to throw their hat in the ring for special operations, to help rebuild the rescues, the squads, to keep the job going. You know, because you know fires weren't going to stop just because of a terrorist attack. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know we need to move forward. And you know, listen, what we lost that day in the fire department, we lost hundreds and hundreds of years in experienced talent and great firemen. You know,
yeah.
And they were looking for senior guys to step up to the plate. You know, and I was like, wow. I don't know if I could do this, but you know, I never thought about going to a rescue company. I just told you guys I gave up studying. I was going to stay in 19 truck, you know, for my career. Really, I was going to stay. I was so happy there, you know, and so at such and such a point, I threw my hat in the ring. I talked to my wife about it. I lost a buddy in Rescue 3, Tommy Foley, and he really drove me. He was Tommy was he got appointed to Squad 41 right out of Proby School. They took him over there. He was a chick magnet, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He was, this is who Tommy, like if he seen you, and he seen Jeff come in a room or one of his other brothers, and he could have the most gorgeous girl on his arm, but he's kind of make a point to come over and see his friends. But he was voted 10th most eligible bachelor, People Magazine. He was he was on a rodeo. He rode bulls. He was an avid outdoorsman. He played on a football team. He was an actor. He was on The Sopranos, and he loved country music. And I love country music, so I used to break his balls all the time. Like he used to do a promo for one of our old country radio stations here in New York, Y107. Hi, I'm Tom Foley of Squad 41 in the South Bronx, and I am new country. And I used to used to give him the business. But anyway, I threw my hat in the ring. I went for an interview on my way into 19 truck. Rescue 3 was on 176th Street at the time between Washington and Park Avenue. 19 truck sits on 167 in Washington Avenue, so 10 blocks. So I stopped for my interview on the way into 19 for a 24, and I had my interview with Captain Ralph Tizo. And Captain Tizo is a smaller man in nature, but a stack of medals, what do you say, a Mexican War general? He's got that, that stack, and he's a great guy. He's not, he commands attention when he comes into a fire scene. And I went for this interview, and I called for some endorsements. Chief D was already retired, and I called Chief D up, Chief D Bernardo, and I said, Chief, can you give me an endorsement? Because he still has weight. And a sidebar story, he goes, didn't I ask you to go to Squad 61 a couple of years ago when they formed the squads? Because Joey went to Squad 61 when they formed the new squads. And he pulled me aside after a roll call on the apron. He said, Jeff, can I talk to you? And he's like, Joey went to X amount of fires his last 24 and forced X amount of doors and blah, blah, blah. And, he really likes the squad. And, I think the squad is good for you. And what do you think? And meanwhile, I'm going, there's no way I'm leaving 19 truck. No way. But I'm not telling Chief D that. I'm like, I'll think about it. And then 9/11 happens, and I'm throwing my hat in the ring, and I'm looking for an endorsement from Chief D, like a memory like an elephant. He goes, I asked you to go to the squad, and but he did. He did give me an endorsement. October 5th of 01, myself, Pat McKenna from 45 Truck, and Stevie Nassau from 33 Truck, two other busy truck companies, one in Manhattan, one in the Bronx, and we're the first three new guys in Rescue 3. Going, to... well, first we're in a firehouse, so we're rescue and recovery operations at Trade Center, going to fires, going to funerals and wakes, and then going to basic rescue school, but basically sitting in a dead man's chair. I mean, there was 8 guys that died from Rescue 3 on 9/11. And, you talk about a tough place to sit. You didn't know what to do. You're like, all the brothers are grieving there, the widows are calling, the house. You're trying to make the job go on. I'm not trying to be one of these firefighters, but at the same time, you're trying to make the job go on,
right.
and hold it to the same standard that these guys did,
Sure.
So and that's how I came to Rescue 3. I mean, I don't know if it would have unfolded that way for me if not, but it was definitely from my heart. It wasn't for any other reason,
Yeah. Wow, that's heavy. That's really heavy. We're going to take a quick pause real quick and talk about some of our partners that help us provide training. Fire decks, all of our instructors wear TechGen 71 and 51. It's PFAS and PFOA free. If you haven't been keeping up on that, with that, it's not just the carcinogens that cause cancer. It's all the stuff inside of our gear. We've talked about Captain Bob Farrell at Firehooks Unlimited. Box 1971 is an authorized trainer and distributor of Firehooks Unlimited tools. Matex hose, Toby down in Dothan, Alabama, does a great job with a no BS approach to hose. This is just gallons per second versus BTU. And then Milwaukee Tools, the official tool supplier of Box 1971. It's Milwaukee, and it's nothing but heavy duty. We've also talked about Mike Perrone and Firehouse Innovations Corporation. Box 1971 is an authorized trainer, and they've sold over 2,500 doors that are actually in service. Box 1971 uses 2 multi-force doors, the crush door prop, and the HT 175. And if you want to have comfortable footwear for every day, you can join the Rock Rooster family. You can rock out with your cock out. That's the slogan. Where every step matters, Jeff, and you just use code BOX1971 for 15% off at checkout. So how was it being in a rescue company as opposed to a ladder or a truck?
Well, first, Rescue 3 is we're the gentleman's rescue. We are. Listen, all the other rescues, there's 5 rescues for the city of New York. For those that don't know, Rescue 1, Manhattan, Rescue 2, Brooklyn, Rescue 3, the Bronx, Rescue 4, Queens, and Rescue 5, Staten Island. Listen, the brothers in the Bronx, they know what they're doing. They're very capable firefighters. We're there to assist, in any way needed. But we do all the technical rescue stuff along with the firefighter stuff. And when I came to Rescue 3, we were the mothership for collapse rescue. We had Rescue Collapse 3, which was a hardware store on wheels, a tractor trailer with everything in it. I almost said one of those big box stores, but I wasn't going to give them credit. It's like, I said, nah. But I seen some parts of the city that I never would have seen if I just stayed in 19 truck. We responded to Staten Island, to the ferry, crash out there.
Wow.
Who's like, you get to respond everywhere. There's a 1060. You're going. A major incident. You're going. Plane. I didn't have any plane crashes when I was in. Big ones when I was in the Air Force or FDNY. But we do all that stuff. Train derailments. People under a train. It's good and it's bad. But we're trained to the highest standard. Some people say that we're like the all-star team, but we just we got guys that are into the job.
Right.
You got to be in the job. Joey D, one of his a quote I use all the time is like, "Are you on the job or into the job?" And being in a rescue company or being in a special operations company, you really got to be into the job and learn how everything works. And then how to circumvent it if Plan A doesn't go right, and then you got to go to Plan B, to Plan C. And you know what? I worked around some great guys, and I know you hear bosses say this, but other firefighters that I work with, they make you shine. That's like, that's the guys that you want to surround yourself with. And I was blessed, I worked, like Mickey Conboy. I don't know, probably nobody's ever heard of that guy, right?
No.
It's like Mickey who? But one of the most talented firefighters that I ever worked with, now he's a boss, and he's got pretty much every medal that FDNY has ever had, you just look at him, you talk about a, Mexican war general. Oh my God. I don't know what he is then, it's like, but, and then Joey D, just working with Joey D, all the time, Joey wanted to tear something apart, put it back together, see how it worked. I was just blessed to work with those guys and and be able to respond around the city. These are the guys that everybody goes to hear lecture, in other
Right.
places. John O'Connell was my 24 partner, like I said, Mickey Conboy, there's just guy after guy, and again, I apologize if I miss anybody, but so much talent, so I got to go to some, some great fires, and people are like, great fires. I'm like, yeah, well, your bad day, we want to perform at 110% when that happens, and make your bad day a better day where somebody doesn't die, and to stop that fire. I guess the pinnacle of, because I know I've been rattling, the pinnacle of me being in Rescue 4 was June of 2004. we got a ticket for a fire off of Bruckner Boulevard. I forget the exact address, but it was like the middle of June. It was a hot day, and I had the rope that day. And anyway, it sounded like a legitimate job. Bobby Engel, Tree Trio started us out. I don't know if you guys know him. He's very famous dispatcher, one of the best dispatchers we had for FDNY.
Is that the beefcake?
That's the beef. That's the beef. Tree Trio, you know. Anyway, he starts us out on this box before they even called for the rescue, you know, and on the way in, you know, we hear the chief talking in Rescue 3. We're in the back of the rig, and it says, you know, it looks like a possible roof rope rescue, and we get up to the roof. And there's a truck company up there, and they're setting up 2 truck companies. And I go over to one truck company. Guy's from 42 Truck. He's tying off, and he's tying off on a substantial object. And I'm like, you got it. And again, being a gentleman's rescue, he's like, I got it. You know, he seemed very confident in what he was doing. So I'm not going to stand over him and babysit him, right? So he's doing what he's doing. Another guy's standing in loops. And I'm not going to tell you that company, but he's in the loops, right? He's in the loops, and he's getting ready to be tied off. And I look over. It's an open shaft, all right? So it's basically a U. I believe it's a 4-story building, maybe 5 with a below-grade entrance, you know,
Okay.
like just slightly. But anyway, I look over the edge, and there's 2 people hanging out a window. And fire is, you know, they're still going in. You know, these people are trapped in dead man's rooms. There's no other way out for them. So I look at my partner, Richie Bailey, and, you know, I said, we're gonna start another evolution, right? Another roof rope evolution. And he says, where are we going to tie off? I'm like, we're not going to tie off. I said, you're going to lay back, you know, take your turns on your rope, and, you know, I'm going to step into the rope. And I just clipped on. I just took the hardware and clipped it onto my harness. I didn't even tie off. I didn't put the loops around my legs and tie the bowline on a bite, or, you know, around my chest, you know. So anyway, in the meantime, the firefighter that was in the loops, I don't see this happen. He steps out of the loops. He doesn't feel confident in the, I don't know. You know, I never talked to him about it. He doesn't feel confident in executing the evolution. So Pat McKenna, that came to Rescue 3 with me, steps into the loops. And we're both sitting on a parapet, side by side in this U. And Kevin Williams, he was a senior lieutenant in special operations when he retired. He's quarterbacking it, and 2 guys go over. In Kevin's words, this is the first time in FDNY history that a side-by-side roof rope rescue took place. I mean, we could reach over and you know, smack one another. You know, we'd have to reach, you know, like
Right.
with our hands, you know, but. Patty pulled a lady out of the top floor window, and I pulled a man out of the top floor window. And again, this is a team effort. It's not one guy. You know, you see dope on a rope, you know, but the brothers, like Richie Bailey's up there. He took his turns on the rope, and I'm over the edge, you know, with the anti-chafing device in place. Another guy's laying on top of him, and another guy's laying on top of him, you know, holding it back, and. You know, we go over, and it was a successful operation, and we get down to the ground, and it's just like the adrenaline, you know, it's just like, it's just so high, you know, it's just like, wow, you know, I can't, you know, like you train for this and you train for it. And, you know, that goes back to 19 Truck. I work with this young lieutenant. He retired as a captain out of 44 Truck, Steve Luisi. And, you know, he always trained outside the box all the time, train outside the box. And it happened that day. You know, we trained outside the box, and it happened. You know, it was successful. I mean, I'm just full of like adrenaline, and like the first person I want to talk to is Jeff Jr. You know, it's like I call home, like, because he's a buff. Like, when I tell you, this kid is a buff, you know, like, he was always like, you know, Mom, there's a fire truck, and that's a Halligan, and that's a hook, and blah, blah, blah. You know, it was like, I mean, I got pictures of these guys, you know. I mean, you know, he's waiting right now for FDNY. He's getting ready to take his CPAT here, and less than a month he should be taking his CPAT, you know, so he could be in, you know, one of the very soon upcoming classes for FDNY, and I'm so excited for him. He was a Myrtle Beach firefighter, but he wanted FDNY so bad, and he just missed being back up north, you know. So I'm like, you know, they loved him down there, and Chief Guire down in Myrtle Beach, he says anytime he wants to come back, we'd love him down here. You know, he's a paramedic. You know, we take him back in a minute, but he's waiting for FDNY. So I talk to him. I tell him, he's like, Dad, I can't believe you did that. That's great. You know, it's like, you know, so. And it's a big to do, but I'll tell you the biggest to do. Like, I got a medal out of that. You know, that was about 6 months. You know, we'll get to Black Sunday, but that was like about 6 months before, you know, Black Sunday. And this is the absolute pinnacle of my career, right? And I'm working one day, and I get detailed outside of SOC. I'm in 29 truck in the South Bronx, and I get a phone call, and I hear Firefighter Cool department phone. So I pick up the department phone, and I'm like, Firefighter Cool. Hey, Jeff, it's Ralph Tizo, my former captain. He's retired now. He goes, I'm so proud of you. He goes, and again, a Mexican War General medals. He goes, my whole career, I always wanted to do a roof rope rescue, and you got to do it. Well done, you know. And I was just like, that was better. I mean, I got the Emily Trevor Warren Medal in 2005. You know, I got Firehouse Magazine Firefighter of the Year for that. You know, but the biggest kudos was like hearing the captain that took me to Rescue 3 saying that he was proud of me and that he always wanted to do that. You know, that was and that really solidified the guys that came to Rescue 3, you know, Pat McKenna was there with me, and along with other guys like Richie Bailey. Those guys came after 9/11 to keep the job going, and you know that solidified that we did it. We're a whole team, you know. And
was that an individual medal or unit citation?
No, it was an individual. So I got, you know, like I said, I got the Emily Trevor Warren medal, and I forget the medal Pat McKenna got, but we both got medals, and it was a big to do. You know,
you bet.
It was, you know, and then like I said, you know, Firehouse Magazine, you know, they seen it, and you know, we got Patty got something for that. I forget exactly what he got, but we had like 3 medals that year. So the medals for 2005, they're for rescues that occurred in 2004. Tommy Foley that died on 9/11, his brother Danny came to Rescue 3 after 9/11. He was a young firefighter. He was in 49 truck. Really didn't have the time to come to a rescue company, but he had the heart, and he proved that he had the balls to go with it. So he, in 2004, right before our roof rope rescue, he went into, there was a tank that a worker was in. It was a confined space rescue. The guy was overcome by fumes. He goes in the tank. You know, on, what's the, I forget the, you know, it's been so long now. You know, it's since I've been out of job, but he's on the pony system. You know, he's got
pony bob.
Yeah, and he's in, you know, in this tank, and he pulls the guy out. Successful rescue. You know, it was again, you know, that Rescue 3 was gelling. You know, it was a team. You know, we were a rescue company. You know, and we were back. You know, unfortunately, you know, before I leave on Danny, we lost him 2 years ago to pancreatic cancer from the effects of 9/11. You know, so we lost both Tommy and Danny. You know, and then we lost his mom and dad both. Dad was down there digging for Tommy, and he was a sanitation worker, retired, but he was down there digging for his son. He died of cancer. Speculation, Mrs. Foley, she died of cancer also. Was it, you know, washing the clothes and stuff, you know?
Right.
You know.
You talk about Joey. How long did you all known each other?
So, you know, we knew each other, but not well, you know, like, you know, in Rescue 3, you know, that's where we really got to know one another. I mean, Joey's Again, Joey's one of the most talented firefighters that I've ever worked with, and I know I've said it before. You'll see tape of me, that he was an encyclopedia of fire knowledge, but he really was. I mean, this guy was on his way. There's no doubt in my mind that he would have been a deputy chief, and in the fire service. He was just. But at the same time, he could be a ball breaker, sarcastic. Sometimes a little moody, not that Jeff can't ever be moody too, but he was a funny guy, I mean, I know I just think of funny stories that, he used to. I don't even know if I can tell some of these stories that I don't know how. Are we like PG?
No, you can say whatever the hell you want.
So we had a pit bull in the firehouse. Her name was Lady, and she was the dirty girl. She got knocked up by all the mutts, and she had all these puppies. She was in the Daily News. She was on the cover of the Daily News. All her puppies went to ritzy places because it was in the Daily News, and here's Lady, the dirty girl, living in a lot, Rescue 3, but so, but we took care of her, we brought her in the firehouse. Joe used to bring her in the firehouse a lot, and then, one day he's like, "Hey, dirty girl," and he's got a jar of peanut butter. He goes, "You want to go upstairs?"
Peanut butter.
Oh, man.
One of my best friends, we joke all the time about that. He just rescued a dog. I sent him peanut butter for it. He was mad as hell.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you were working for him. Was he a lieutenant at that time?
No. We were both firefighters.
Okay.
We were firefighters. He got promoted after Black Sunday. He was on the list for lieutenant, but they promoted him after he got hurt.
Okay. So working together.
Yeah.
Right.
We were great. I mean, we worked in the groups together a lot. So yeah. He, like I said, he showed me less time than me on the job, but the knowledge, especially the technical rescue aspect of it.
Sure.
I couldn't hold it to him, for sure. He was a shining star.
He'd found his niche.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, January 23rd of 2005.
Yeah.
Let's.
So, well, I mean, I guess we'll start. The night before. We come in. There's a nor'easter in the city of New York. We're working at 24. I believe Joey picked up the meal that night, and he brought it in. It was a nice steak meal, and we were getting hit by a nor'easter. We had about a foot of snow on the ground. Wind was blowing in excess of 45 miles an hour. Temperature was in the teens. It was a crappy night, I remember going in. My wife's like, "Oh, here's another day that I got to shovel snow," and and my buddy that lived across the street, he's a battalion chief now, John Gormley, but my wife and his wife grew up side by side with one another, and as kids, and they're both NYPD's children.
Okay.
They got smart, both of them, and married firemen, both of them. And then we lived across the street from one another, and but anyway, so John and I were out there shoveling snow, and got the snowblower that we shared jointly as neighbors.
Right.
And off to work we go, and it's an uneventful night. Really, a couple smoke walks, nothing crazy. We have a good meal, breaking balls in the kitchen, just hanging out. Rest our eyes for a little bit. We get an early run the morning of the 23rd. We're sitting in the kitchen drinking coffee, and then we hear this job come in just before the 8 o'clock hour. Well, it sounded like a job, and so it's at 236 East 178th Street. Rescue 3 is on 176th Street. So this basically about a half mile from the firehouse is where this fire is, this reported fire. Rescue goes on, well, they have some boxes that they respond on, more so now, but they normally don't go until it's a 1075, a working fire. Multiple calls, any of the tech rescue stuff we're responding on. So they didn't start us out on it yet. So they're getting, 2 engines, 2 trucks, and things start going sideways fast, the monkey wrenches. The address, I forget the exact first address that comes in. So first due becomes second due becomes first due, so they kind of switch. They locate the building, they locate the fire, 1075, Rescue 3's responding. Again, a foot of snow on the ground, but we're there pretty quick, As a rescue company, we report in as a team. Rescue 3 does, and then we report into the battalion chief. Chief, where do you want us? There's a line stretch in the building. There's a second line being stretched to the floor above. Chief, where do you want us? I want the outside team to the roof and the inside team to the floor above. 10-4, Chief. Chris King's the captain that day. I'm Rescue Irons. Joey D is Rescue Hook, and we were riding heavy. Every engine company had a fifth man that night because of the nor'easter, and every rescue company had an outside vent man, which we normally don't have. So we had one additional guy. So that was Pat McKenna. He was the OV, and Danny Burke and Rich Bailey were on the roof, and so we're going up the stairs, and it's a moderate smoke condition in this 4-story building, 3 apartments per floor, 40 by 90. 1 is a street, 2 is like a driveway and then a private dwelling. 3 is a rear courtyard. 4 is a similar attached. Quick size up, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay?
Right.
But that's where we do exposure 1, 2, 3, 4 in New York City. So we get up to the fire floor, which is the 3rd floor. I see a moderate smoke condition, but our job is the floor above. That's where the chief wants us. So we get up to the floor above, and there's 3 apartments per floor. You can see the truck companies up there. So it's 27 truck. They're doing their thing, and we go into the adjoining apartments. I have a thermal imaging camera, but it's a moderate smoke condition. I don't even have my face piece on at the time, and we're searching, for extension and for anybody that could possibly be up there. And there is multiple reports of somebody still on the top floor. Such and such time, they, if you listen to the transcripts, they lose water on the fire floor. I don't know why they lost water. I mean, they lost water. Okay.
Right.
I mean, it was could have been ice that got in the impeller, whatever. But the fire starts gaining headway. They back the line on the top floor into the down to the 3rd floor. So the floor above line goes to the 3rd floor. So we're operating without the protection of a hand line on the top floor, and we continue to press on. If you listen to the radio transcripts, and you'll hear, Lieutenant Myron, talking back to the chief, do you have any extension up there? Minor extension. And seconds later, you'll hear Captain Chris King. We have fire blowing out into the hallway. Mayday, mayday, mayday. It went bad quick up there. For those that don't know that this fire well, and they should know it, because in the words of Joey D again, are you on the job or into the job? Doesn't matter if you're FDNY, LA, Myrtle Beach, wherever, Podunk, USA. This job is a historical fire that changed the fire service. Okay, there was SROs, single room occupancies, inside this structure. SROs are illegal apartments, right? They can be legal in the city of New York if they're sprinkled and they have a smoke detector and everything. These were just illegal rooms inside of an apartment. So there could have been, I think there was 5 or 6 illegal apartments chained and padlocked inside of the apartment. So when you go into a fire, we as firefighters, civilians, I explain this to, is that we already go into a maze. Now we're going into a hamster habit trail. Okay, it's a complete maze, So there was an illegal wall on the fire floor that didn't run floor to ceiling. So when they got the line back and they thought they were hitting fire, my tongue got tied for a second. The wall didn't run floor to ceiling. It ran about 12 inches shy of the ceiling. That wall was made out of MDF, medium density fireboard or fiberboard, right? Which is highly flammable, highly combustible.
Sawdust and glue.
Yep. So, they thought they were hitting a fire. Dougie Hantush was the chauffeur of Rescue 3 that day. He worked for Safe IR, one of the leading training groups in the country, teaching thermal imaging. And he sees the fingers of the fire, they're at the ceiling line, and he thinks they're hitting it. But what they're hitting a wall. So that fire is coming over top the 12 inches. And so the fire continues to burn and burn and burn, and now it's burning up, right? So now we're on the floor above, and there's still a report of people being trapped, and we're moving around up there, and we're searching. We're not just running around. We're moving around. We're looking for extension. We're looking for this person. Were they under a bed? Were they in a closet? And I mean, there's been multiple times that, a 1045 a DOA is found after the fact, right?
Right.
Somebody missed it, right? So it's starting to get a little more snotty up there, and Captain King directs me. He goes, Jeff, he goes, and I was already. He goes, take your thermal imaging camera and pan the walls, and I find a small heat source just inside the door in the kitchen area, and I pop a hole in the wall, small hole in the wall with the Halligan, and fire immediately starts to vent out. And this is, if you had the radio transmission side by side with me doing this, it's within seconds when you hear Lieutenant Myron, minor extension, to Captain King, we have fire blowing out into the hallway, blah, blah, blah. We did a line to the top floor. So when this fire starts to vent out, and it's starting to go dark, and I step into the hallway, and I take my thermal imaging camera, and I pan it towards the back of the apartment. I pick up silhouettes of firefighters, and I advance towards them, because I know our primary means of egress is behind me. So I go to this firefighter, and I say, hey, brother, we need to fall back. We got fire behind us. We don't have a line up here. And he goes, we're trapped. And I turn around, and it's fire floor to ceiling. So we go in. There's a bedroom, which was bedroom 2, and we go in there, and the door's slammed. And now we become like rats in a cage. And, we're circling around this room. I get knocked over in this room. I lose my hand tools. And it's going to shit, like real bad, And Joey ends up getting trapped to my left in bedroom 1. And I'm trapped with 27 truck, Lieutenant Curtis Myron, firefighter Eugene Solaski, and probationary firefighter Brendan Cawley. This is Brendan's first fire, 27 truck. His brother Michael died on 9/11. And then John Ballou was up there with us somewhere. He was the chauffeur of 27 truck. I don't know exactly where, because the fatal fire report, if you read it, and I'm not the only one who'll tell you this, there's a lot of bullshit in that, is not factual, I'm really not going to get into that, but I'm going to tell you for facts that it's not factual. Gene Solowski would tell you the same thing. He goes, he says, what that fatal fire report's good for? And, guys will go, what? He goes, to wipe your ass with. That's what it's good for.
Sure.
And so anyway, we're trapped in this room. And Pat McKenna was up there on the fire floor with us also. He was in the far end in front of Joey's bedroom. He crawled into a closet, righted himself, and rolled under fire. And down the stairs he went, out. Captain King, by the grace of God, he got out of there. But I'm trapped. And there's Mayday after Mayday after Mayday going off. And to make matters worse, there's another illegal wall on the top floor. And that illegal wall was double-sided sheetrock that ran floor to ceiling. That was just outside of our bedroom. That we could have went through fire, a minor amount of fire. Well, when I say a minor, a short distance of fire, because minor wasn't the right word, because it was fire floor to ceiling, to get to the fire escape. But we couldn't, because this illegal wall impeded that. It didn't allow us to get to the fire escape. So you can look at it out the window, but you can't get to it. So it's a 4-story building, but we're 5 stories. Yeah, we're 5 stories above the ground. And, Mayday after Mayday is going off. And, a 2-sided rescue approach is being started. The brothers are diligently trying to come get us, but time is of the essence. A roof rope evolution is being started on the roof. But again, we look back to the World Trade Center and people jumping, and you question, why did they jump? Why did they jump so quick?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, when fire's at your tail, and you're getting burned. So anyway, you hear multiple Mayday messages. At one point, Eugene Stolowski he ran out of air. Somebody lowered a mast to him. But just for time purposes right now, I'll try to speed it up, is that Lieutenant Myron went out the window first, right to my right. I mean, I could pretty much reach over and touch him. And I'm on a window air conditioning unit. I got pushed out of the room. I'm 5 stories above the ground on a portable window air conditioning unit that's probably held in by a screw. And fire is just blown out over my head like a jet engine because the whole room is filling up with fire. Lieutenant Myron is hanging there, and I've heard Gene talk about this. So this is not verbatim, but basically he's showing his 2 firefighters, you can hang here and then take some of the fall off and then drop. And he went down to the ground. He went 5 stories to the ground. He was killed that day. Brendan Cawley went out the window next, the Proby. He hung out the window. Down to the ground he goes. Gene goes out the window. His alligator clip on his Scott air mask got hung up on the child guard gate. And he was hanging upside down. And you could hear Gene talk about this. Gene's an amazing guy. He's hanging there upside down, 5 stories above the ground, and for a couple seconds, and then it lets go and down to the ground. When he went down to the ground, his knee came up and hit his chin and drove his head back into his air bottle, and he had an internal decapitation. He had a 5% chance of walking and or living that day. And I know I'm not blowing over this out of disrespect for the brothers. I'm just doing it for the sake of time. Now I'm on this window air conditioning unit, and guys are still trying to come and get us, but time is of the essence. I look to my left. I see Joey DiBernardo, same apartment, different room. I said, Joey, I got a rope, but nowhere to tie it to. I bought this rope 6 months to the day that it was used. I bought it at Firehouse Magazine in Baltimore, and the piece of the rope hangs on my left wrist. Every day I wear it, And so quick argument takes place. Joey goes, you go first. I'm like, no, you go first. Now I'm on a window air conditioning unit. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but, brothers doing what brothers do. We place our lives and, that other brother's life in front of our own. That's the meaning of brotherhood, And Joey goes, you got a wife and kids. You go first. So I threw him one end of the rope, and I should back up, because we all had ropes into 1999. We all had personal safety ropes. What are they called? Not personal safety. What were they? Personal ropes. It was 40 feet of 3/8 rope that we could find a substantial object, clip one end of the rope on, walk to the window, put your arm out the window, hard on soft, take the wraps, go back out with your hand, bury it into, under the windowsill, roll out, take your hand, place it behind your back, and down to the ground you went. 5 of the 6 guys had harnesses on that day, but no ropes, because the fire commissioner at the time, Tommy Von Essen, decided that we no longer needed them. That's basically what it was. We just no longer needed them. They hit their shelf life, but he never said why when we went to court about it. Why they were taken away. He wrote a lot of bullshit, but they had one sheet of paper, but they were supposed to be replaced. That was December 1999. So 5 of those 6 guys had harnesses. So that's basically like having a gun with no bullets in it, or having an engine with no water in it. So I throw one end of the rope to Joey. He steps on it. He wraps them around his arm. I wrap it around my body in a belay fashion. I roll out the window. I probably had too much slack in a rope because this wasn't a sanctioned piece of equipment. Oh, and guess what? FDNY in the fatal fire report gave me a ding for using unsanctioned rope. So I roll out the window and I pendulum. And I pendulum, I'm on the 3 side or the C side of the building, and I pendulum out to the B or the 2 side, and I come back in, and right under Joey's window, I believe I hit the wall, and the wind got knocked out of me. And when the wind got knocked out of me, my hands opened up. And I probably cut 12 to 15 feet off my fall, and I fell probably an inch or two from falling another 10 feet to that below grade entrance. I fell right under Joey's window. Joey clips it onto a child guard gate, not a substantial object, rolls out the window, 12, 15 feet, he gets down, but he goes down in that below grade entrance. He goes another 10 feet. So they guesstimate that we hit the ground at about 35 miles an hour into concrete. And I told you there was like a foot of snow on the ground, but the wind was blowing, and it was like all powdery snow, and it was just right into concrete, you know. And I talked to, I don't know if you guys are from down south. Do you guys know Steve Gillespie? Do you know him? Yeah. So Steve's retired out of Squad 41. Well, then he got promoted as a lieutenant, and he was down in North Charleston and then Goose Creek, and now he does a whole mental health thing. But Steve and I were buddies. We played hockey with one another. We're still buddies today. And he told me maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit more, he goes that he was coming around the side of the building. He was working at that. And he came around the side of the building, and I just missed coming. He's like, I see this object, and I just missed coming down on him. And so we lay in the back alleyway, and it's all hands. If you haven't listened to the radio transmissions, do yourself a favor, listen to the radio transmissions. Because Lieutenant White from 56 Truck, he's back there watching the whole thing unfold. He's giving a play-by-play. He's calling. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. We need massive EMS here, massive injuries. And I say to Lieutenant White all the time, and I talk to him, once or twice a year, and I said, I'd rather be back in that window today than stand where you stood, watching that, because it's burned into your mind, and that's a huge thing. And I want to go back to the mental health, and I don't know how long I've been rattling, but
just keep talking as long as you want. Brother.
I know I've been going and going and going. I guess I have the gift of gab, but
Chief said you were the excellent speaker of the two.
Well, he's got some great stories. You just got to get get him going a little bit.
That's right. Tune him up.
He's like my dad, he calls me his son, but anyway, catastrophic injuries back there. John Ballou went out another window up there.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That actually made the hair on the back of my neck stand up for a second.
Sorry.
It's like, it's not the first time I've heard those transmissions. I lived it, but
what we're going to do is we're going to attach that to the rear of this podcast. So what we're doing when we get done is you can just listen to everything. That way you don't have to do anything else, just one-stop shopping. So Sorry about that, Jeff.
That's fine. So John Ballou went out another window up there, and I'm not real sure where he went, but John died that day. Lieutenant Myron died that day. 4 of us now are surviving catastrophic injuries. Eugene Selowski, by far the worst out of all of us. He's not breathing. Guy from Squad 41. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. Former paramedic. He operated outside of his scope that day. Thank God he was there.
Right.
He opened up Gene's airway, got him going. He was with Joey. The medics, the firefighters, the EMTs, the doctors, the technicians that worked on us. We were, everybody's like, well, what did you break? I go, like, everything, man. I broke everything, It was like, I'll just talk about me first, is that, I broke my pelvis in multiple places, and it was like shattered glass going into my femoral arteries, and I had a major femoral bleed. They had to put me to radiological intervention, and they say I bled out 72 units of blood before they had all the bleeding stopped. And the average human being holds 8 to 10 units of blood. I broke both my shoulders. My pelvis it's crushed, it's racked. Compression fractures in my back and my neck. I broke one of my arms. I broke all my ribs. I had a flail chest. abdominal compartment syndrome. And for those that are not doctors and medics, basically all my internal organs began to swell inside my body, and they had to eventually cut from my sternum to my belly button, a nice C-section, take all my internal organs and rest them outside my body, to let all the swelling subside. My wife gets to the hospital, and my wife is from an NYPD family, and she gets there. They wanted to launch the helicopters, NYPD helicopters, to pick up the wives and stuff, and the moms and dads, to get them there, but they couldn't do that, so they had to have just police cars, shuttle us in. And she gets to the Bronx, and I'm looking at pictures, my wedding pictures behind us, and my wife is a girly girl, but she is tough as nails. She's mama bear. Don't mess with her kids. Don't mess with her family. And she starts talking to one of my doctors, Dr. Michelle, and she says my head is like huge. It's like bigger than a basketball. It's just huge. And Dr. Michelle is like telling Jill, she's like, we're gonna do everything. She's like, just put them back together any way you can, and I'll take them. That was what she exemplified from minute one. And that's what she still does today. She is the glue that holds the Cool family together. And it was a long go. I mean, I was in ICU and on a ventilator, just shy of a day of being trached. Again, it was crazy glue and duct tape that put my body back together because of the abdominal compartment syndrome, the femoral bleed. Normally, we would put plates and screws in my pelvis and stuff. Well, they had to put an external fixator, so 5.5-inch titanium bolts into my pelvis with the football injuries you see with the halo on. Well, I had that erector set on my pelvis. And my shoulder, they left both my shoulders. My left shoulder is still in 5 or 6 pieces. My right shoulder, not as bad. Everything was just let it go. Just let it go. And once I was awake, they closed my fascia, and I just watched this large mound, and it was a big hole down from my sternum down to my belly button start to close. It was the nastiest thing to look at. And from there I went to Helen Hayes Rehab Hospital. I fought with the doctors. I shouldn't have been out of ICU yet. I should have still been in a hospital. But I wanted to be close to my boys. They were young, I just turned 38. So this is the 23rd of January. I turned 38 the 18th of January. When I found out at some point that John and Kurt died. That crushed me. John was my friend outside the fire department. He was a Rockland guy where I grew up. He was from Pearl River. I'm from Haverstraw, so we know one another. I didn't really know Kurt, but it's I think back to Proby school, and one of my DIs, he says, look to the left and look to the right. Guys are going to die in here. Guys are going to die in this class. And why I've seen a lot of death, 9/11, before 9/11, there was a run. I think we had 16 guys or whatever it was in 16 months, 12 guys. It was a lot. And then 9/11 happened, but I'd never had a guy die to the left and right of me, and it's really hard to process, it's
Sure.
I live with survivor's guilt. I live with PTSD, because I was the only guy carrying a rope that day. And it's from time to time I question, what could I have done different? I was a rescue firefighter. What could I have done different to get these guys out of there? And what it really comes down to is there was probably nothing I could have done, but it's something that's there all the time. It's a heavy weight to carry around with you, but you just got to deal with it, and I've talked to guys that have been through similar stuff, and combat veterans, and without saying names, I've talked to some old timers through Vietnam, and compartmentalizing stuff. I really don't know if compartmentalizing stuff is the right way to handle stuff, because in the old days, man, we used to just stick it back there, and when it came out again. You got the bottle or whatever you did, and you vent it out. With that being said, I wasn't a happy guy for a long time, and I lived with it for a real long time. I was a mean son of a bitch to my family, to my friends, to be around. It is what it is. But my wife stood by me. My wife, she didn't quit on me. She's like, she got me, go to this counselor, go to that counselor, and I went to counselor after counselor. And when I say that, I'm talking mental health stuff,
Right.
to talk about it. I was suicidal. I never put a gun to my head, but I'll tell you this: I've tied a rope up a couple times, and I took a garden hose out, thought about taping it to a tailpipe, but you know what? The good Lord left me here, and I just want people to know that if they're going through something, you can get through it, because I'm not bullshitting about this, man. I don't know if I've ever said this out loud publicly, really where I was. I've talked to individuals, but never like in a public light, dealing with this, and finally I found there was two people I found. First and foremost is the good Lord. I read the Bible cover to cover, and started going to church, and then I went to this counselor, Dr. Steve, and Dr. Steve. I'm a proud patriot, that leans, that loves Old Glory, and Dr. Steve is, he leans the other way, but, we learn to agree. And I'm not saying he's not a patriot, but we learn to agree to disagree, and he guided me through so much. But at the end of the day, if it wasn't for my wife standing behind me and my family, I don't know where I'd be. I really don't.
No doubt.
And then, I don't want to. We could talk about me all day long, but I want to tell you about my brother Joey D. It's like, Joey. He saved my life that day. He had catastrophic injuries too, broke all the bones on his feet. He was a single guy. The love of his life was FDNY. Again, I know he would have been a deputy chief in a job, a leader in a job. That job meant everything to him. I knew my career was over. With all the injuries I sustained. I could have worked late duty somewhere, right? But that wasn't me. I wasn't driving 4 days a week to the Rock. I was like, I wanted to be a firefighter. I wanted to be, and now I was a Rescue 3 firefighter. I wanted to be crawling down a hallway, right? And so Joey and I would get in arguments. I'm going to be honest with you. He got nasty with me a couple times, and I don't think I was so sweet back to him, and I was like, I tried to tell him, go bowling, go fishing, go golfing, go do something, whatever you could do, take up another hobby. And, he's like, life sucks, and, I missed the job. And, we always waited for the light to shine on the other side, right? When I say that, I don't even know if that's the right term, but to get this, let's talk about the elephant that's in the room. There was a legality. There was a lawsuit that was brought against the city of New York and the building owner for taking the ropes away and the illegal conversions in the building. And we wanted to see this end and see something positive happen, because money doesn't make you whole, but we wanted to make a statement that no firefighter should ever be without a bailout system. Okay. And now I'm rattling, but so again, December 1999, they took those ropes away. Speed forward to January 23rd, 2005. There should have been ropes in place, but they never did. It said on that department order in December of 1999, everything will be held in abeyance till such and such time that a new system is developed. It wasn't developed. 6 guys go out a window. 2 guys are killed. 4 catastrophically ended or injured. And the city of New York does the largest, most in-depth study that's ever been done on bailout systems to the dollar figure of $16.5 million. If you go back and, speculation why they took the ropes away from us, they hit the shelf life, right? And they didn't want to replace them. It was just under $900,000 to replace those ropes. Dang. So now we have 2 guys dead, four firefighters that are they going to be able to go back in a firehouse ever again? The scars that they carry both physically and mentally. And Joey's got all these injuries, and Joey wants to be a firefighter, but he could teach, and he's a wealth of knowledge, but, he's not crawling down another hallway. So they promote him to lieutenant, which is great. It looks great on, paper, and I'm not downplaying. Joey was proud that he was a lieutenant, but he's not leading men down a hallway. And we had some arguments, in life, like, how to enjoy life again. And, it was easier for me that I had a wife and, kids and everything. And Joey's family was FDNY. And, but then he did find a love. And I never met this love. And he was writing poetry, and life's good. He got a boat. He's out doing life. And, and we're not anywhere near the courtroom yet. There was another part of this court that we should talk about. There was criminal charges against the building owners for making these illegal conversions. The super, the building owner, the tenants, they all walked. We've seen the judicial system just spit in our face. They just walked. And I still remember the cries coming out of the widows that day when they walked. And it was disheartening. It was crushing. It made us pissed off. Still pissed off today to see the way the judicial system. Because basically the judges threw it out. She threw it out. That's what she did. But anyway, Joey was good, and he was doing his boat, and he had his gal and everything, and life's going on. I went to a hockey game with I got to tell a funny story with Joey before we get to the sad part. Is that I'm a diehard New York Ranger fan. Both my boys are diehard New York Ranger fans. They played hockey. They still play hockey. Anyway, Joey scores tickets for the Rangers Islanders game at the old Coliseum out on the island. And he's like, Jeff, I want you to bring the boys out. We're going to go to the Ranger Islander game. Okay. He goes, all right, we're going to go to dinner beforehand. Let's meet at Hooters. So I got to drive out to the island. You guys are complaining about traffic. I see the island. I'm like, I don't want to go to Long Island. But anyway, Joey scores these tickets. We go to Hooters, and, we're sitting there, and the girls, and they're little Hooter uniforms, and the boys are young. They're young, and the waitress comes over, and she's like, how do you want your wings? Breaded or naked? And Joey's like, naked, of course, right? And the boys are little guys, 8, 5, something like that. They're cracking up. So Uncle Joey, that's what the boys called Joey. They called him Uncle Joey. That's how much the boys mean to Joey D means to the boys, is that he's Uncle Joey. Jeff has a Joey D tattoo. Jeff Jr. He has Uncle Joey tattooed on his arm. But Uncle Joey goes, all right, boys, what do you do when a girl bends over? I don't know, Uncle Joey. What do you do? So starts teaching him at a young age.
Got to bring them up right.
We go to Ranger Island, the game. They have a blast. We have a lot of fun. It was good times, and we're just moving through life, right? We're with Delta Card. We're trying to deal with it. Morning of November 22nd, 2011. I'm putting one of the homes I owned in Rockland. I'm putting chairs together, kitchen stools together, and I see a pickup truck pull into my driveway. And I think it's my brother. And I hear somebody walking on my back deck. And It's my buddy Timmy Wren. He was from Rescue 3. He was the liaison for the Cool family, for Jeff, myself specifically. And I'm like, Timmy, what are you coming in my back door for? You know, like normally comes to the front door. He just looks at me and he's like, there was no easy way to say it. He's like, Joey's gone. Joey died. And I'm like, there's no way, because I'm just watching everything. Life's good. Life's great. You know, writing poetry. And I'm like, who is this guy that was writing his poetry? You know, because I'd never seen this side. I was so, at the moment, I was so shocked that I couldn't cry. And I cried a lot of tears after, but I went and got my wife. I went and got my boys. You know, it's, you know, a lot of people talk brotherhood and brothers. I mean, but do they really know what a brother is? You know, like, he saved my life. You know, he let my boys see their dad. You know, he let me see my boys grow up. He let me parent my boys, you know, my wife to have a husband, you know. He's an amazing individual, man, and I'm forever indebted, you know, who Joey was, you know, like, you know, we talk about him like he's still here, because he does live on, you know, inside of me, you know, Jeff Jr. right now, you know, like, why he emulates me, you know, and he wants to be a New York City fireman. I think he more so for Joey, you know.
Right.
Jeff does, you know, he does so much to keep Joey's name alive, you know, and we'll talk about Joey's foundation here in a minute, you know, but, you know, so, you know, we lost Joey, and, you know, a lot of people were like, you know, he committed suicide, blah, blah, blah. You know, there was a lot of talk about that, you know. Well, we were talking a few minutes ago about all the pain medicine that I was on, and I was on a ton of pain medicine, you know. Fentanyl, before we even knew what fentanyl was, you know, I was on patches that they had to wean me off of it, you know, so they would just step it down. You know, my wife had to take rubber gloves, put them on, so she didn't touch it, you know. I didn't even know what this stuff was. And then I couldn't sleep. I was in pain. You know, I was on Ambien, you know, oxycodone, not Oxycontin, and take a Heineken and wash these pills down. Not because I was looking to kill myself, because I just wanted to sleep, right? I was just looking to sleep. So, again, and I'm not trying to cause any disrespect to Joey, but I've done a lot of reading and research in this, and, you know, I read this book several years back, and it was about a MARSEC raider, Marine type, you know, special operations, Nicholas, I can't remember his last name, but he was in a bad way. He was taking all this medicine, and one day, you know, his heart was pounding, and his girlfriend just gave him copious amounts of water to flush his system. It was all the medicine that he had in him. So Joey was taking physical pain medicine and mentally pain medicine. And unfortunately, our doctors that we have today, it's like trying to find a good car mechanic, one that looks at you and then listens to you, and then is not down writing on his pad the whole time. You know, they're writing these script after script after script. So Joey, the combination of these two medicines put Joey into respiratory distress. And that's how we lost him. It could have been me, you know, and thank God it wasn't, you know, and unfortunately we lost Joey D, you know, and you know, that's where it was, you know, but there was a lot of guys that said a lot of bad stuff about it, you know, and but you know what? You don't know what you're talking about. And you know, I'm not going to say any names, but the ones that said that stuff, you know what? Go look in a mirror. Really look at yourself before you start talking about anybody else, and then look at Joey D, and then look up the word hero, because Joey D's name should be right next to it.
Yeah. I mean, that's, a lot of folks say a lot of things, You know, you talk about South Carolina with the Charleston Nine. I know a lot of guys that were down, there that day, and you see the bullshit written in a report. You know what the guys said, and you know the facts of what people have said. And then you get people that have never been to Charleston that are talking about it, or never, been to City of Charleston firemen. It's a slap in the face.
Yep, absolutely.
It's a disrespect, and I didn't realize how bad it was until I saw the chief have a moment. We were in the boot store. I can't remember. I wanted a new pair of boots years ago, and we were in the store, and he just, something triggered him to where he just kept saying, "My guys, my guys, my guys, my guys, my guys," and like it was like I would say out of ignorance, a Tourette's moment, but it was a mental trigger, right? Something triggered him to where it took him right back to that place in time where the 9 guys perished, right?
Yep.
And to hear people be disrespectful about something or speak ill of the dead is just it's disrespectful.
Yep.
And sometimes they should be tuned up.
Yeah.
But the great thing is that Joey D is very much alive, and his legacy will continue with the work that you and his father are doing.
Well, it's just not us two. There's a
but
ton of other guys that are involved.
There's a bunch.
There's a ton of guys and it's getting bigger. I mean, we have our brothers in Texas now that are stepping up to the plate. There
Is that the Woodlands?
The Woodlands.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of Houston firefighters, but that have stepped up and helped with us, and so I mean, through I just recently. I guess, coined this. I don't know. This is me, and when I say coined it, me saying it, But I was with Eugene Stolowski. We were on a golf trip a couple months back, and we shared a room, not the same bed, and that was a joke. Okay, so
No judgment from us.
Yeah, judgment free zone, Jeff.
We still love you.
So Gene is, Gene is pretty banged up. He had an internal decapitation. He's fused. He had a less than a 5% chance of walking and or living again. And he's very labored. So if you put Brendan, Gene, and Jeff next to one another, 3 survivors right now, you would say, wow, there's no way that all 3 of those guys were side by side and 2 of those guys went out the same window. Because Brendan is still a firefighter in 27 truck. Gene is. He's still a firefighter for the city of New York, but he's in a light duty position. He'll never be in a full duty position ever again. And then there's me that's retired, because of my injuries. But anyway, so Gene and I that morning, I go down and get him coffee, and we're sitting there, and we go down the rabbit hole, and we go down this rabbit hole 18 years later that we haven't been down before. And there's tears, and we're talking, about, you talked about things that trigger, like the Tourette's thing, but I'm not going to tell you what he told me, but we have talked about this, like sharing it in a public forum, like having not just, Jeff and Gene there, but other guys, could be somebody from the Charleston 9 fire, the Worcester fire, from the shooting out in Vegas, just, saying what we've been through, to share, and, things that the darkness and then the goodness that we've seen. Because with that being said, is through tragedy has to come triumph, or nothing else. It just doesn't matter. And through the loss of Joey D, 10 years ago, the Joey D Foundation was formed. And the Joey D Foundation, Lieutenant Joseph P. DiMinardo Memorial Foundation, which you could find at joeydfoundation.org or joeyd.org. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on the web. Is that our mission is to make sure that no other firefighter has to face what we faced that day. So we provide financial aid. And when I say financial aid, we provide the dollars for the bailout systems and the training to go with it to fire departments across North America that can't afford the bailout systems. Okay, because it should never be about money. It should never, firefighters wear thousands and thousands of dollars in PPE on their persons to save lives and property. Why shouldn't they have a personal safety system on themselves to save themselves if the need arises? And with that being said, I guess ignorance is bliss, because I talk to firefighters across the country. I've lectured for years now on Black Sunday, and my lecture is it can't happen to me. And I want firefighters to understand that day, and then where bailouts have happened across the country in the last couple of years, how the PSS personal safety system was born in FDNY, where there was personal ropes prior to Black Sunday and where they were taken away, and where bailout systems are saving firefighters in FDNY today, because it does work. But everybody thinks this happens in a big city, right? That's where people are jumping out of windows, right? They're like, oh, it happens in a big city. I'm like, no, it's not just happening in big cities. It's happening across the country, right? I mean, if you want me to do a lecture, you can reach out through your podcast. We can add a link there, how to get a hold of me. And that money goes to the Joey D Foundation. It doesn't go in my pocket, right? So we provide these grants. I just lost my train of thought for a minute, and we train firefighters, we hold a training seminar. I know where I was going. Here, we'll back up now. That squirrel, get out of my brain, squirrel, please. In New York State in 2009, in 3 different cities, we had 10 firefighters bail out of 3-story or less wood frame structures. That was the city of Buffalo, city of Syracuse, and the city of Yonkers. For those that don't know geography for the state of New York, Yonkers butts right up against the Bronx. So January 23rd, 2005, 6 firefighters go out a window. 2009, I don't remember the exact month, 2 firefighters, one of Rescue 1 in Yonkers, Patty Joyce, goes out of a window. He's impaled on a wrought iron fence. He bleeds out, again, there's a bailout system. Probably could have saved his life. Would he have got injured? Possibly.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a bailout system, and when I say system, because they're a complete system. It's the harness, it's the rope, it's the descent control device. It's the training. It's the whatever device they use to lock off. There's multiple devices. I don't endorse any one system. There's plenty of systems that needs to be NFPA approved. It needs to have a hands-free descent control device on it, an anchoring system on it. Firefighters, we need to evolve. We fight evolution. We could go back to my buddy Joe Selly, right, that I talked about, the guy with the high voice. When we got bunker gear, he's like, they can put a man on the moon, but they can't build fire gear. Can't you get me one of those Nomex flight suits from the base? I'll wear one of those. Joe, this is what we're wearing today. It's like, we got to evolve, right? We're not wearing, rubber gloves anymore and rubber coats. It's like we're evolving. The fire service evolves, but we always want to fight that. Why do we want to fight it? I don't like. We just like to fight. It's like,
we don't like change.
Just like at the kitchen table. It's like, hey, everybody's got to have a different opinion. Well, we know what opinions are, but I'm telling you, I'm here because of Joey D. I'm here because of a rope and the good Lord, and I know personal safety systems save people, and Joey's Foundation, we're driving that home like we drive it home, and I talk and talk and talk, and I hope it doesn't happen, because usually when I talk that day or within days, somebody bails out, good, bad, or indifferent. It happens. It's just a gimme. We were talking before we went live is that, a couple of years ago, I was in, what are we in, 2023 now. So like 2 years ago, we had a bailout in the Bronx, Squad 61. And it was one of my friends, Joe Morstadt, in Squad 61. He bailed out of a 2.5-story frame type. And he got trapped in a small room, and he had no way out except the bailout system. And I talked to him that morning, and he says, "You guys were there with me." And I was like, that's eerie to hear, but at the same time, it's good to hear. that has made a difference.
Right.
That fire. We have firefighters that still don't believe in them, throughout the fire service. Even in FDNY, we have guys, in Special Operations Command that are not wearing these bailout systems. Truck companies, I hear stories. And I know facts too. I'm not going to throw names. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus.
Right.
But this was paid for in blood, all right? The personal safety system was paid for in blood by John Ballou and Curtis Myron and Joey DiBernardo, right? They died in the line of duty. And that system was born because of Black Sunday, right? And for guys to not wear it, they're pissing on the graves. And I don't know how else to say it. They're pissing on the graves of my brothers, And if I'm a boss in whatever, we'll just say ladder X, right? And I'm a boss, and Joe's not, or Sam, or Pete, or Mary is not wearing that PSS because they don't think that they need it. I'm going to give them two choices. I'm going to tell them, put it on, or I'm giving you charges. Because I'm not going to be that guy that goes to the door and says that your son, your daughter, your mother, your father is not coming home because I failed to supervise.
Right.
It's fair.
No.
It's fair.
So since Joey's inception, the Joey D Foundation's inception, we hold an annual training seminar, and now we hold out in Suffolk County that's going to be November 3rd through the 5th of 2023 at the Suffolk County Fire Academy. 2 days of hands-on, 1 day of lecture. And now we're doing them in the Woodlands in Texas, which is passed in March. We've trained thousands and thousands of firefighters. That's our big fundraiser. We train them with the best firefighters in the business. The guys that you see at FDIC, the guys that you see at Firehouse Magazine, the movers and shakers in the job. But we have a better to student to instructor ratio. So if you want to touch Mike Dugan or Mike Champo or whoever,
Right.
you can get up close and personal, So come to the seminar. I'll introduce you to Mike and Mike, not a problem,
Bring your book.
Yeah,
Champo will sign it.
yeah, he'll sign it for you. But since the inception of Joey's foundation, we've outfitted 83 different departments in 25 states, and we've provided just under 1,600 systems. So that's huge, right? And we're a true 501c3. Nobody's on payroll. Everybody does it for the love of the job. Everybody says we're a non-for-profit, but we're a true non-for-profit.
Right.
We do it in Joey's name, and we do it because we don't want to see it happen to another firefighter.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And a lot of the charitable organizations, we were talking about this with the Tunnel to Towers, I think it's 95 cents of every dollar goes directly into the fund to do something. And, you look at other non-firefighter charities, the lion's share of the money ends up in the CEO's pocket.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. Talking with the chief, talking, with you, I've been a supporter for years of what this foundation does, and it's good to see. It's refreshing to see the fact that the chief says East Cupcake Fire Department all the time.
Yeah. I do podunk.
Yeah, East Cupcake. That they can get a system, and training, and that's the cost prohibitive factor. Usually, is it's not the device, it's the system. It's the cost of the training.
Yep.
And having the ability to go out and train, or having a location to. So that is it's a deterrent, but it's not a roadblock. It's just got to take a detour to get there. And this foundation bridges that gap, and it's raising awareness and making people see that there's options. It's not just one brand. And I love the fact that you guys aren't locked into one brand. You don't stump for anybody. It's just get the system, get the training. We want to help.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, be smart, again, if you're a chief and you're out there listening, or you're a mayor or a councilman, and you happen to listen to this podcast and, where are we going to get this money? Where are we going to get it? be cognizant in your budget, when you do that. And if you can't, if you're financially strapped and you can't afford it, come to the Joey D Foundation and apply for a grant. But if you're a big department and you're not outfitting your guys, with one of these systems, your guys and gals, I don't know, like, what do you want to get, that big shiny red fire truck, with all the bells and whistles, or can you, shave a few dollars off of it right now and get it gold leafed? And I mean, like really, I mean, like, don't be, I mean, that's the true buff. It's like, that's what I look at as a buff. Hey, we got all this, the gold leaf, and we got this siren, and that's, yeah. Do you have a bailout system?
Yeah.
What's a bailout system? Like, I talk to firefighters all across the country, and I'm not going to tell you where I was, but I was walking through an airport, and I'm like, that was the conversation. They were going to look at their fire truck, and they're like, what's a bailout system? What's Black Sunday? I'm like, and I met the chief, and I'm like, I go, and I said to this chief, I go, no disrespect, I go, but if you're a chief, you should really know the history of the job.
Yeah.
And you know what? I still today, being outside the job looking in, I could tell you stuff that's going on, a lot of it through my son, because every
Sure.
time you turn around, he's like, hey, do you see this? You see that? And I was like, and I'm like, all right, Buff, take it easy. But,
He loves the job, though.
Yeah, he does. He loves it. He does.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with loving this job.
Yep.
Because it is the greatest job on earth.
Yep.
It is absolutely phenomenal.
Yes.
It is the people and the places you go. I mean, just like me, Bud Rotroff. I would have never thought that those words would come out of your mouth.
Wow, this is crazy. I hope we got to make sure, because I'm still friends with Bud on Facebook.
Yeah, I'll make sure.
Yeah,
me too. I was looking to see if I had any pictures with him on mine.
Yeah,
I've got some at the house, but not online.
Yeah, I wasn't in North Star. I was in Moose Creek.
Yeah, well, now that is North Star.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, do you remember Chuck Frady also?
No.
Who was some of the other guys? But there was a ton of guys up there. But yeah, it was.
Did you ever meet John Colelli? He was I think he was from the Bronx or Brooklyn, but he was an air traffic controller, and he was a pisser.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of fun though. Yeah. He was a battalion chief when I was there. Okay. So, but yeah, Moose Creek was my least favorite.
Population 1, part time.
Yeah, unless they were at the transfer site right in front of the firehouse.
Yeah.
But you could watch things. You roll up the bay door and you watch people dumpster dive. That was a lot of fun. Good old Moose Creek.
Yeah.
But, well, listen, I think we've. Do you got anything you want to close up with?
You know what? Like, if there's anybody out there that has a contact, or you want to send $1 or $10, to the Joey D Foundation, we much appreciate it. We're a true non-for-profit, and that money's going right back out there to make firefighters safer. We work hard to get the money that goes back out there, and there's grants that we have to turn down. I want to thank another group that works hand in hand with the Joey D Foundation, the Leary Firefighters Foundation. Financially, every year they step it up a notch, to get us money, that goes right back out there to firefighters, But if if you could, send $1, you could send $10, you could send $10,000, that's going right back there to make firefighters safer, because no firefighter should have to face, what the 6 of us faced that day, it was jump and hope for the best, or stay there and burn to death,
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I got to mention a couple folks, and then we will button this thing up and we'll get down the road. Seek Thermal Imagers, providing a thermal imaging device for every riding position. Economical, sleek, it has to be Seek. First In Leather is firefighter owned, firefighter crafted. Mikey offers a lifetime replacement on his work for radio straps, helmet fronts, whatever. If you want to use the Box 1971 checkout code off of 10% off of $50 or more, use that. Crestar firefighting equipment. If you like Redhead, that's most of the couplings you see on your hoses, then you'll definitely like Crestar firefighting equipment. You don't have to pay for the bullshit advertising. Old Pappy's Tool Lube. Don't be a fool. Lube your tool. Thompson Multimedia. If you can imagine it, David Shooter Thompson can do it. Decals, wraps, awards, trophies. Your imagination is the absolute limit. And Akron Brass for providing us with nozzles and the best flow meters in the market. And last but not least, we are a little bit partisan, Jeff. We use Sterling for our bailout kits, and that's who we train with, and that's who we're endorsed by to provide bailout training across the United States, and we use Sterling rope. If you want to use the best, use the first, and that was Sterling. I can't imagine how you have been through what you've been through and can just sit and talk about it, because I can't,
Well, again, it's like God left me here for a reason, and I should, again with Gene, when a couple of weeks ago when we went down that rabbit hole, and I know the good Lord left me here for a reason, and that's why I continue to do it. It's tough. It's, my wife and I were just having a conversation about that. She's like, when is it ever going to be done with this? It's 18 years later, and I'm like, everything I do is, make sure that it doesn't happen to somebody else. It's like, I mean, we could probably talk for another 5 hours on the subject,
Sure.
But, but I just want to say this, what you were saying, it's like a Mayday, because I've been on both sides of a Mayday, receiving end and a giving end of it,
Right.
and it's like, I'd rather get my balls broke if the Mayday got canceled or got righted back in the kitchen than to see a guy or gal, dead in, or catastrophic injuries in an alleyway.
Right.
It's like, and we got to learn from our mistakes. We're not perfect. That's why I was in 19 truck, because you know what 19 truck's motto is? Nobody's perfect. So
It's true.
It's like, I love to, again, if anybody wants to hit me up, I'll share a way with you that you can add a link there.
Yeah,
And,
we'll do that for sure.
But I gotta rock and roll. Time is
time is of the essence.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm going to leave you with one thing. Change your life today. Don't gamble on the future. Act now without delay. We thank you for tuning in to the Halligans and Half Wheels podcast with Box 1971. Remember to train hard. We are all that they have.
The radio transmissions you're about to hear were captured on January 23rd, 2005, as the third alarm fire was transmitted at Box 2997 236 178th Street. 6 firefighters would become trapped at the top floor of an illegally subdivided apartment building. And they were faced with a dreadful decision: do I stay here and burn to death, or do I jump and hope for the best? 4 of these brave firefighters jumped, and 2 shared a makeshift rope. 2 of these brave men perished on this horrific day: Lieutenant Curtis Myron of Ladder 27 and firefighter John Ballou of Ladder 27. Miraculously, 4 of these firefighters would survive with catastrophic injuries. Firefighter Eugene Stolowski of 27 Truck, firefighter Brendan Cawley of 27 Truck, firefighter Joey DiBernardo of Rescue 3, and myself, firefighter Jeff Cool of Rescue 3. In a separate incident that afternoon, firefighter Rich Scalfani of 103 Truck would also lose his life in a line of duty. That day in the fire service has become known as Black Sunday. May we all take a moment and carefully listen to these radio transmissions and see how an ordinary textbook fire, if you will, can change to chaos in a matter of seconds. May we never forget the sacrifices of these men, and may they rest in peace.
Hold up on the windows. I got people on the front fire escape. Hey, Battalion 1-7, all units on the roof. Back out to the stairway. Back out to the stairway. It's out the windows on the top floor. 1-7, engine 4-8. How do you make out your line? Brothers on the roof. You're going to need to send the rope over the side. Roof team, send the rope over the side to the 4th side of the building. 1-7 to division. We need the line on the 2.5, smoking and George water. Okay, 6-7 to division. What's below? Rescue, who's to rescue? Mayday. Go ahead, boys. Go ahead, Mayday. What's your location? Rescue the roof. Well, gonna get to the roof. We're gonna bail out of here. Hurry up. We need radio silence. I need water in that 2.5-inch line. 48-inch water to the 2.5-inch line. Hey, get a rope to the roof. Rope to the roof. Get a 35 in the rear. 35 in the rear. Rope on the roof. 35 in the rear. Battalion 1-7 Division. You got that? We need a rope on the roof. Top floor, we're losing the top floor, Patty. Vision 710-4. Vision 721, a ladder 59 fast truck, roof on the rope. We got guys out the rear window, okay? Mayday, 5-6, stand down, Phil. Mayday, fireman down in the rear. 2 firemen down in the rear. 2 firemen down in the rear. Let's go. We got to 75, put your pump in your Mayday, 2 firemen from the top floor in the rear. We need them. Put my brother in the... Oh, man. Now, show the mixer up. We got a whole company in the rear. They had to... Drew, Asdell! You got 6 guys out. You're the real Drew. You got it. Roof, let me roll down. Mayday, in the rear! Leading in there, in the rear! Give me horses! Go! Put the rope down! Lower the guy on the rope all the way down! Look, hold on, Mike. Get on that! Yeah, Battalion 1-7 Division. Go ahead, 1-7. Have you got a good report from the roof? What's going on in the rear, Patty? Kevin, the whole company just jumped out of the rear, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who jumped in the rear? We need massive EMS here. Massive injuries. 10-4, I've already notified EMS. They're calling a bunch of buses, okay?